Hey everybody, this is Dirk Verbeuren from Megadeth, and you are checking out Info Music, Info Drum Lovers. Cheers. Great question. I mean, definitely, I moved to America because I met my wife there, and so it didn't really have anything to do with music. But I can say that living in Los Angeles is a nice benefit because there's just so many things around. There's a lot of shows happening. All the bands and musicians come through town. A lot of the brands, are around, and there's a lot of events. Obviously, things like NAM, and all kinds of, like I said, endless number of concerts every week. So in that regard, I think it's great because part of being in the music business is the social aspect, and so. As a matter of fact, I went to see Megadeth a few months before I was asked to join the band, and so I don't know if this has directly anything to do with it, but it definitely didn't hurt, So yeah, I would say it's definitely, if you can do that, then it's cool, Well, thank you, first of all. Well, I was always there was a lot of music in my house. My parents always had the radio on or were playing albums, classical music, rock music, pop music. So from very young, I had different influences, and I was always very, interested in music. I had favorite songs when I was like 4 years old and stuff, and then in my school that I used to go to, so like, when I was 7 or 8 years old, they had music classes. So that's when I did violin. We did vocals too, so we did a lot of singing and, later on some piano, guitar. I still play guitar and bass, not great, but, good enough for me to do what I want to do. And so I would say that, the versatility just comes over the years from spending time with it and just from a really deep passion that I have for music. And I was actually talking today with my colleague about how much of a pleasure it is to compose music. It's really when you let that creativity out and kind of what's inside of you that you can't really define, but it just comes out through notes. That's a great feeling, and it's kind of an addiction almost. Once you start doing it, then you want to do it more. So for me, the versatility is the deep interest that I have in all of those different things. I would say it's pretty different. When you have your own band, like for me, it was Scarve, my first band that I was very active in. And then now I have my side project, Ben C, which is like my grindcore project where I write the music. And so that's a very different thing because then you kind of do what you feel and what you want completely. And there's no one else but eventually the other band members to discuss this kind of stuff. When you're a session musician, it's very different. A session musician has very different roles depending on the situation. So some cases demand a very specific goal. So some people want you to play very specifically what they have in mind. Other people will bring me in because they want me to play like I play. So they're like, here's the songs and just interpret it in the way that you would, and then maybe make a few changes here and there if I'm doing something that's kind of, not working or whatever, this happens. It's always kind of an exploration, but my role when I work as a session musician is very different in the sense that somebody else comes to me with their music, and then I need to find my place. It's kind of like, I would say, not the same, but in a way a little bit similar to when you join a band. Like I joined Soulwork in 2005, started touring with them the year before, and that's the same. It's a band with a history. Same thing with Megadeth, obviously a very big history, and I can't just go in and, put blast beats in every song and stuff, If it was me playing, maybe I would do things differently, but these are songs that people want to hear a certain way. They're great the way they are, and I don't need to come in there and change them. So then it's more about, again, finding my place. And so that's the big difference between the two. Yeah, all of those things. I think that um, when you have a better understanding of what other people are playing in the bands, then it's easier to find, what you can contribute on your own instrument. So in my case, I'm not like, I don't know that much about, for example, the theory of guitar playing, but I know what it's like to play guitar, and I can play some stuff. The same thing with vocals, so I have an understanding, and with the bass, of course, too. So that allows me to kind of know when to do certain things and when to not do certain things. So I think the more you know about the general thing, the better it is, And the same thing with, you mentioned MAI, the school. I learned so much there from the amazing teachers and from different styles of music that I wasn't familiar with. And even though I can't, I wouldn't say that I can go tomorrow and play with a jazz quartet or trio or whatever, because I don't have that good of a skill. But studying, for example, jazz, and studying the techniques and listening to the music and to the the main reference drummers and all that, has definitely informed my playing, and other styles as well, Afro-Cuban, funk music, all kinds of things. So even if in the end I'm a metal drummer, I think broadening the horizon is always a great asset, because then you can bring different influences in and different ideas that maybe you wouldn't have if you were listening to metal only. This is very important. So especially as I'm getting older, I'm not 22 anymore. So back then I didn't really care. Now I do fitness regularly. I take the time to stretch before performances and warm up, as you saw earlier, just kind of making sure that I'm ready to go on stage and perform. And also for me, besides the fitness, also I have a pretty clean lifestyle when it comes to food. I'm vegan. I don't drink alcohol. So, all these things used to be different when I was younger, but I really, over the years, decided to, make some changes so that I could be in the best optimal condition for performing this kind of music, which it's physical and it's demanding, especially now with Megadeth. We're a band that really brings a show, and so this involves a lot more visual stuff on my part, so that people will enjoy the show. We play a lot of big stages, so I'm often quite far away from the crowd, so I can't just sit and play like this. So I really have to make myself seen and bring something to the show other than just playing the parts. And so this means my fitness needs to be like this, or else I will not survive the tour. Pretty much, yeah. I would say, you take resting time, of course. Sometimes you take some days off or a day off or whatever to just let your body rest. But yeah, you have to be active. And if you're not, like if you take too long of a break, then you're quickly going to have trouble. No, I've never smoked. I stopped drinking 12 years ago. I've been vegetarian for almost 12 years, vegan for 2 years. So it's all this stuff, it makes a big difference. I feel better than I felt when I was much younger, and I feel way more able to play and to perform 100%. Because this is another thing too. Sometimes you're very tired. Sometimes you travel to the other side of the world, you have jet lag, you don't get much sleep. And then you have to go on stage and play for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, and then, then this stuff will make the difference. The fact that you're in a good condition and stuff, even if you're tired and then you can still go on stage and give the best you can, put down a good show, and then you can go to bed. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about this among people because there's vegan bodybuilders that are just amazing. It's all about making sure that you get the right nutrients. So when you become vegetarian or vegan, you have to study this a little bit and find out like how to replace certain things, what to eat. So for example, I eat obviously a lot of vegetables, but it's not only that. I eat a lot of raw nuts, which bring a lot of protein. I eat a lot of meat replacements like tofu and seitan and other kinds of stuff like that. And also, I just, like I said, it's in conjunction with the fitness. So I eat a lot of small meals rather than eating like, a little bit for breakfast and then a lunch and then a huge dinner. With me, especially when I'm home, I eat like 6 times a day and just smaller meals, so that it's not a lot to digest at once, but you're always in a good place. And this is what a lot of fitness people do, vegan or not. This is kind of a sports thing. So that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah, it's dictated a little bit by the situation, especially on the road, because it changes. But usually I go to if we're in a hotel that has a gym, then I go to the gym. And I do some, I'll do some weights. I'll do some, body weight things as well. I'll do some cardio. So all the different things, to kind of combine. I like the Tabata, which is, kind of a high intensity interval training. So I've been doing that, 2-3 times a week, just because it helps also with the endurance on stage. And it's a lot of body weight stuff. So it's something that, you don't need much to do it. So I can also do things like that in my hotel room or in the cabin of a boat. Recently we were like traveling by boat, so I did it in my cabin. So it's things like that. So it's definitely, it fluctuates a little bit, but I think that's good, because one of the good things about fitness is if you always do the same thing, then after a while it's not that effective. So you need to constantly switch it up, learn new things, change the routine so that your body always has to be like, oh, now we're doing this, okay. And then you build muscle and you build, strength. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, we're all different, so there's not really any rule that applies to one person, but I can say that, or rather to everybody, it's kind of different for everybody, but I can say that regular practice, my 3 words are practice, patience, perseverance, and so regular practice is important, especially if you're trying to develop speed, because it's something that will take time and that you have to build muscle. So if you do it once a week, it's not going to happen, even if it's 8 hours on Saturday and then you don't do anything the rest of the week, it's not good. You're just gonna hurt yourself. And then patience, because it takes a long time, and perseverance, because when it's taking a long time, you're always gonna get times where you feel discouraged, or you're like, I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse, and people need to know that this happens to everybody. This happens to me and to, every musician out there. You go through these mental things where it's like, why am I not getting better? I'm working so hard, and I feel like I'm getting slower rather than faster. But these phases always happen, and then you come out on the other side and you actually are getting better. So you need to understand this and know that when you're working on something like this, it's like very athletic. It's kind of like being a high jumper or a runner or something like this. And so you have to look at it this way. It's very intense, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. So that's the key, if you apply these things and you stay consistent and you don't give up, then you can get better. Oh, a lot. I've worked with both of those brands for a long time, and they really, have helped me, do what I needed to do, because it can get very tricky when you're doing, for example, clinics in different countries, or you're touring in different countries. Sometimes really the fact that these brands can step in and help provide what I need makes a big difference, because when you're used to certain gear, you need this gear to perform at your best. You can play with something else, but for example, if there's no Tama pedals available, it's going to be hard for me, I can play with some other pedals, but it's going to be very tough for me to find my balance and then perform at the high level. So in this case, they've really helped, and also they are both brands who really include the musicians in the research and development part. So they'll come to me with testing prototypes or coming up with new ideas and seeing how that goes. And so these are also things that I really appreciate, because, it's not just about, oh, here's some drum stuff and go play, but it's about, hey, we're interested to hear, what do you think about this new thing? Is this working? Is it not? Sometimes I say, yeah, it's great. Sometimes, this is not that great. We need to, make some changes to this. And they actually listen to the feedback of their endorsees. So this is great. I really like the attitude that they have. And yeah. No, I really don't have anything like that, My wife has lots of tattoos, and I love her tattoos, so I kind of live vicariously through her, as we would say, but I mean, maybe one day, I like all that stuff. I just, somehow it hasn't happened, but maybe one day I'll have a big Vic Rattlehead, on my back or something. Who knows? Cool. Thank you. Thank you.